Round 5 of the Groundtrax Northern Off-Road Championship returned to Bradford, but to a different venue this time, taking on the farm tracks and fields of Huntsworth. Onto the opening runs of the event then, and it will be the early lead for Simon Adams and Aaron Birch. There will be a few issues with catching the dust with the double lap course, but that would likely be the same for everyone at some point in the event. Indeed, it was a problem for 28th place Richard Copsey and Mark Shaw. They follow a car for half a lap before red mist and lack of visibility got to them. They parked the car in a large ditch. Damage to the wishbone would be the only real problem, along with some cosmetic damage. But the biggest issue would be the maximum time, putting them down in that 28th position.
I caught Brian Huggy Farmer on the split and merge. He didn't see I were there, and with the dust and everything, I hooked a wheel in a ditch and ended up having a maximum.
It will be a good start to the event for Martin and Aston Cox. Martin taking the driving duties for most of the day, with Aston stepping in on run 4. This will be Aston's first time in the driver's seat of the GSR, but the times were good. Perhaps learning a thing or two from Dad on the earlier runs of the day. Second place for the pair at this stage. Cameron Jones and Sam Fitzpatrick also make a good start to the event. Third place was theirs. There wouldn't be any problems for the pair either. They have a nice clean run, setting some good times right from the blocks this time out. For Huggy Farmer and Richard Rawlinson, it will be 4th place. The times were close right through the top of the leaderboard, and there would be no room for error. One spin or stall could be the difference between a handful of places. And Toby Jefferson makes a good start with 5th. Himself only a handful of seconds behind Farmer at this stage too, as well as lying 3rd in the class. Some adjustments to the suspension for this weekend were improving the run times as well. No problems to report for Andrew West on day 1. The car was performing well, the times were looking good, so the driver was as well. 6th place at this stage in the event, 4th in the class, just 3 seconds back from Jefferson. 10 seconds will be the difference for Robert Simonite in 7th place behind West. They were swapping fastest run times throughout the afternoon, so it would be all to play for on day 2. Mark and Sarah Casely returned to the championship on the previous round in Scotland, but unfortunately they failed to finish. This weekend was looking good though, with 8th place at this stage in the event, but with a little repair work to do overnight to the rear of that car.
Yeah, it's gone very well, yeah. Started off a bit wet this morning, but apart from that, it's been really good.
They work on the car now, is that?
Yeah, we broke the CV, got a little bit too excited, started catching one of my friends at the end then, just got a bit childish, broke it.
Carl Gudgeon, meanwhile, will be happy enough with his pace in the Mini, not keeping an eye on the times, supposedly, but the feeling in the car was good. 9th place for now, certainly within reach of a few more places on day 2. And rounding out the top 10 at the end of day 1 would be Steve Hill. Happy that the course suited him and the times were looking good, leading the way in Class 9 with these times overall too. In a few of the classes outside of the top 10 then, it will be 2nd place in Class 2 for Chris Sainter, a little way off the lead of the class, which would be our event leader overall. But he wasn't having it all his own way in that 2nd place. He'd have this man, Adam Bunting, just less than a minute back in 3rd place in the class, as well as just behind on the overall results as well in 12th place. For Dan Lang, it will be 2nd place in Class 9, just over a minute back from Hill in that class lead, but there were still many more miles to go on day 2 of the competition. Mark Calzoni leads the way in Class 3 at this stage. A good start to the event, especially considering 3 years out from competing. 15th overall at the end of day 1.
It's gone really well. It's 3 years since I've raced, so I'm knocking the cobwebs off today, but the car's gone really well. It's been a trouble-free day, so I'll be well tomorrow. We can get to the end. We're only 2-wheel drive with this car, and it's only got a motorbike engine, so we've got the smallest engine and only 2-wheel drive, so I'm pleased. Yeah, it's going well.
The times in that class will be close though, with Ben Middleton and Steph Taylor lying 2nd in the class just behind Calzoni. 6 seconds the difference after the first day of racing. John Sagar takes over the steering wheel for this round and making a good start to the event as well, leading the way in Class 8 at this stage. There'd be a 15-second advantage as well in the class, with James Lofthouse lying second place in the class, happy with how things were going with the times and with the car.
It's going a lot better than it was first thing, a bit slippy early on. It's nicely dried up and trying our best to put best times in we can. Just trying to keep some life in the old girl yet.
And the gap between second and third place in the class would be the same again. 15 seconds standing between James Stubbins and that second place in Class 8 at this stage in the event. John Rennie leads the way in Class 1 at this stage in the event. Some good times on the board would see a lead of over a minute in the class at the end of day 1. And Mark Walker will be a little way off the Class 9 pace. He's in third place at the moment, sitting back a few places overall on the times, but they were getting quicker through the day. So hope then ahead of day 2. For Peter Bauer, it will be second place in Class 1, just over a minute back from the lead in the class, but that may not be too much to claw back on day 2. Tim Martin and Tristan Lamb, meanwhile, would lead the way in Class 4, but that wasn't without its problems, getting stuck in the second pass of the muddy section of the course. Thankfully for the pair, as well as many others, this section would be cut after the second run of the day due to the amount of people struggling so much with it. Someone else struggling, but not necessarily with the mud, would be Robin and Becca Clarkson. They break something on the car in the opening run of the day, frustratingly dropping down to 29th place on the leaderboard. Dean Hoskins and Tim Longfield would suffer in the same ditch as Richard Copsey, getting stuck and taking a maximum on run 1. Things starting to improve though after that incident. Dave Wilson and Alex Corbett would be out in the car for the first time this weekend. They will be another pair to initially struggle with the muddy section, but once they corrected their line through there, they were managing to get through with no issues, something which even some of the four-wheel drive cars were struggling with. For Craig Snowden, it will be second place in Class 4. Unfortunately, a maximum on the final run of the day, not helping those overall times. And it would be bad luck for Ian and Lee Davidson. They get a puncture after this heavy impact in the muddy section of the event, also damaging the power steering lines in the process. Worse was to come though on the second lap of the stage when the pair finished the car off and would be forced to retire in the same section of the course. A bad weekend all round, it has to be said. So with day 1 completed, Simon Adams leading the way, but that fight at the top was close. Any one of them capable of taking the lead and victory on day 2. Coverage of the Groundtrax Northern Off-Road Championship is made possible for you by our championship sponsors. On to day 2 then, and there wouldn't be any change at the top. Simon Adams and Aaron Birch continuing to lead the way. The advantage in that position, 28 seconds. There would be change though to second place. Cameron Jones and Sam Fitzpatrick taking that position after the morning's runs. Still hunting down victory, but would have to pull something great out of the bag to gain half a minute in the final part of the event.
Keep pushing. I think we're going to change his tyres to all terrains, push that a little bit harder. We'll keep knocking a few seconds out, so hopefully we'll have the first.
Martin and Aston Cox slipped down the time slightly to third place overall, but things were close. Just 2 seconds between themselves and Jones for now. The push would certainly be on in the final 4 runs of the event. We were in for a treat. Huggy Farmer and Richard Rawlinson would have a small brush with a tree in this morning's runs. It didn't look like much, but it managed to damage the bodywork on the car. Still though, they set some good times to lie in 4th place at this stage in the event.
It's going really well. We had a bit of an issue on the start line. The first run I stalled the car, carried on round, put a reasonable time in. But as you can see, we've had a little bit of a coming together with a tree, trying to get every little inch of the course.
Robert Simonite gains a few places this morning, picking up the pace and moving to 5th place overall. Around half a minute back from Farmer, but edging out a bit of a lead in that 5th place. Bit of a comfort margin himself.
Yeah, can't complain. Car's going well. It's nice weather. That's what it's all about. Don't think I'm going to win, but it's all good racing.
There'd be a slip down to 6th place though for Toby Jefferson in this loop, now sitting just over a minute back from Simonite going into the final runs of the day. And things were still going well for Mark and Sarah Casely. 7th place at this stage and just 7 seconds behind Jefferson. The car all sorted after last night's repairs. Chris Sainter will be climbing his way up the results and lying inside the top 10 with 8th place overall now, although he'd be almost a minute back from Casely up ahead. No change for Carl Gudgeon, he remains in 9th place overall for now, but this would be about as far as he goes. No times in the afternoon and retirement from the event. Rounding out the top 10 now will be Dan Lang, climbing a few places overall to take that position with 4 runs still remaining. Some of this change at the top would be due to the loss of this man, Andrew West, a maximum on run 8, putting him out of the event, and his exit freeing up some space in the top 10 for others. We'd also lose Steve Hill from the results after this morning's runs. Sadly, the well-suited course wouldn't be a chance for a good result for him this weekend, despite what he came here hoping for. Things were still going well though for John Sagar in this morning's runs, leading the way in Class 8 and now with slightly more of an advantage in that position. In the lead of Class 1 still at this stage was this man John Rennie, 13th place on the overall leaderboard, but there was a chance of a top 10 finish if he could trim any more of those run times. For James Lofthouse, it would be 2nd place in Class 8. The gap to the lead had grown a little, but he was getting some time overall to lie in 14th place for now. Ben Middleton and Steph Taylor, meanwhile, would have a small problem when they hit the hedge in one of the runs, breaking a mudguard. But apart from that, things were not going too badly. Mud flaps and mudguards can always be replaced, don't forget. And there's a place gained now for James and Ben Davidson. They step up to take 3rd place in Class 8 at this stage in the event from James Stubbins, who himself drops down to 4th in that class and just less than a minute back from Davidson. Although not in the top of the results anymore, there would still be a battle going on for the fastest time of the day. Richard Copsey and Mark Shaw were close, as well as fighting out for positions with Robin and Becca Clarkson too after their day 1 maximums. 3 seconds between the pair at this stage, and both still trying like the wind depended on it. Mark Walker gains a position in the Class 9 fight, from 3rd to 2nd place in the class. 20th overall at this stage too. And there's no change for Peter Bauer in Class 1, still lying 2nd place in the class at this point in the event, but gaining a couple of places overall to lie in 22nd place now. Tim Martin and Tristan Lamb were avoiding any more issues. They have a clean run on day 2, setting some good times, enough to keep them in the lead of Class 4. Dean Hoskins and Matthew Tate were also avoiding the ditches on day 2. A stand-in co-driver for day 2 due to his original co-driver being unavailable, and things seemed to be going okay for now for Dean. Unfortunately, Class 2 would lose a crew this morning. Adam Bunting gaining a few maximums on the last run of the morning, being forced to retire. And there'd be a similar fate for Craig Snowden, a maximum on the final run of the morning, dropping him right down the leaderboard. Dave Wilson and Alex Corbett hadn't had the best of weekends overall, it was fair to say. A few small issues would be preventing them from giving 100% out there on the course. Day 2 would also see a new name on the results, as Simon Lee and Rob French joined the event on the 2nd day, due to being busy trying to fix the car on day 1. They'd be setting some good times in the class though, now things were working. So at the end of the morning's runs, there will be no change to the lead, but the fight for that 2nd place and hunting down Adams would be close going into the afternoon. Coverage of the Groundtrax Northern Off-Road Championship is made possible for you by our championship sponsors. On to the final runs of the event then, and problems would be marking the end of the day for Dean Hoskins and Matthew Tate. They end the day with only rear-wheel drive, which was causing issues with the handling, of course, resulting in a couple of spins and moments on their way to 23rd overall. Frustration for Dan Lang, a bad time on run 10 would be the difference between this and a good finish. 22nd overall by the end of the day. He does end the event with second place in Class 9 though. But there wouldn't be any change in the class for Peter Bauer. Second place in Class 1 right through the event, finishing with 20th on the overall leaderboard too. Tim Martin and Tristan Lamb have a clean run through the rest of the day, ending the event with 19th place overall, and of course taking that Class 4 victory with the loss of a few crews in the class. It may not have been expected, but it would certainly be welcome. The Class 9 victory for Mark Walker this weekend. A good end to the event and taking 17th place overall too. James and Ben Davidson, meanwhile, managed to keep hold of their recently gained third place in class, ending the event with 15th place on the leaderboard. For Ben Middleton and Steph Taylor, it will be the Class 3 win. The broken mudguard would be the main problem this weekend, which wasn't a bad weekend out here in this championship for the pair. No change for James Lofthouse in the final runs of the event. Second place in Class 8 will be a good finish, lying a few places outside our top 10 with 13th place overall. A few minutes of time penalty by the end of the day would hinder the overall times for this man, John Rennie. It could have been the difference between 12th place and a top 10 finish as well. The times were still good though, and he'd be happy with that Class 1 victory. Richard Copsey and Mark Shaw don't quite get the fastest time of the event. They do, however, set some times that would have been good enough to fight for victory. They have to settle though for 11th place overall here at round 5. Their little battle in that place with Robin and Becca Clarkson would also go the wrong way. Clarkson able to end the event 7 seconds up from Copsey and rounding out our top 10 overall. Inside that top 10 it will be 9th place for Gary Reid, taking 3rd in Class 6 with that result. And it would be a great end to the event for John Sagar, taking the Class 8 victory, but it wasn't without its problems, of course, almost putting the car in a ditch, pushing too hard with this spin on one of the later runs in the day. With the Class 2 leader ending the event in the top of the results overall, it will be the Class 2 win this weekend for Chris Sainter. He'd been running well all weekend, ending the event with 7th place on the leaderboard. Mark and Sarah Casely put the non-finish of the previous round behind them, ending the event with a finish and a good one as well, 6th place at the end of the event. Robert Simonite will be another man happy with the times and that result. He takes 5th place overall here at round 5. The Class 6 victory going to him with that result as well. There's more frustration in our top 10 though. Huggy Farmer and Richard Rawlinson would have to miss out on the podium places this weekend. 30 seconds back from that fight, but finishing in a good 4th place overall and taking the Class 5 win. And that podium fight, well, it would end with only 8 seconds separating the top 3, and taking 3rd place will be Martin and Aston Cox. They were having a starting issue with the car between runs and would do a little cosmetic damage on a gate post in one of the final runs of the day. So that meant 2nd place for Cameron Jones and Sam Fitzpatrick. The times were very close, just 2 seconds between them and Cox at the end of the event, and getting close to that victory that he'd wanted all weekend. But that means it's victory for this man, Simon Adams, Aaron Birch alongside, the first victory of the season for the pair after 2 2nd places so far. Happy with their performance and happy to prove the car had what it takes on the fast courses as well as the tight and technical ones. So confirmation then of victory for Adams at the end of the event. That close fight for the top places here in Bradford, one of the closest we've seen so far this season. The 2nd place for Jones pushes him up to 2nd in the championship as well after 5 rounds. Huggy Farmer maintaining a lead though in the title race going into the final 3 rounds. Coverage of the Groundtrax Northern Off-Road Championship is made possible for you by our championship sponsors.
It was getting real tight towards the end. Nerves were getting to me a little bit, but to be fair, I loved that last lap. We had a great last lap. Thanks to Aaron for co-driving, thanks to Copsey, we've been camped next to him.
good support and advice from Copsey. But yeah, just pleased to get to the end and yeah, win the event. Awesome, really chuffed.
You went out and
No, not quite what we wanted, but we're second and it's the highest finish we've had this year, so happy days.
What a cracking weekend. In the top 3, there was only 9 seconds between the 3 of us. Son here, Aston, co-drove with me. We shared the runs. Yeah, fantastic weekends racing. Car, we've hardly laid a spanner on it as per normal. Just had 1 or 2 little starting issues, but that is a wiring and a switch. But yeah, fantastic racing. Well laid out course, well marshalled. Good, very good competitive weekend. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
and it's your first time competing in this car. Have you found it?
No, it's awesome. I'll say going from an independent, going from B-Max to an independent is just a completely different ball game, and just love the fact just bang up through the gears in the sequential box, and it's unbelievable. So I've beaten Dad on time, so I can't complain. I think he's got to hang his boots up and retire now. In the moral of the story.
No, I don't think so.